The Oklahoma Sooners excite in their annual spring game.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, a very special Monday edition of Locked On Sooners as we break down the Oklahoma Sooners spring game. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Josh Helmer here, at Josh on Ref on Twitter. I'm at John Williams. I'm so excited just to get into the spring game, and that's why I'm completely butchering the rest of this intro. But we hope you are excited to hear our takeaways, hear our breakdown, hear what we got to say. So should we go position by position here? Do you want to go offense, defense? Where do you want to start, Josh? I'm going to let you pick this time.
Well, obviously a lot to dissect. Let's start with what was the biggest question mark, which was, okay, what is the offensive line going to look like for Oklahoma? And based on the scuttlebutt, the reports that you heard coming out of camp, the thought was, okay, advantage defense for Oklahoma and big-time advantage defensive line for Oklahoma going into the spring game. And the defensive line certainly had its moments from a pass rushing standpoint in particular. But the offensive line for Oklahoma allowed some time for Jackson Arnold to go make some plays. There were some positive things in the run game for Oklahoma. It was not this out and out, the offensive line has a ton of problems for OU, and that's good. Ultimately, that's a good thing for Oklahoma. So I thought relative to what the expectations were coming in, or what maybe not the expectations, because the expectations are always high for every position group at Oklahoma, but relative to sort of what the temperature in the room was from the fan base regarding the offensive line and in the media, I thought it was a good day for those guys.
Yeah, that first unit I thought played pretty well. Michael Tarkin started at left tackle. Jacob Sexton was your left guard. Josh Bates was your center, right guard Fabechi Wiwu, and then right tackle was Jake Taylor. There were obviously some shuffling around throughout the game, but that was kind of that primary unit that worked with Jackson Arnold and Gavin Sawchuk early in the game. And yeah, I thought all in all, they held up pretty well. Did the defensive line win some reps? Absolutely, they did. But you were seeing holes getting made for Gavin Sawchuk, for Sam Franklin. You saw Jackson Arnold sitting back there with plenty of time. And there were times where some of those, sacks, quote unquote sacks, were coverage sacks. And I mean, that's a credit to the defensive backfield that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I thought all in all, the offensive line held up pretty well and provided a lot of encouraging things. Now, is it ready to go into, Auburn and play the SEC week in and week out? Maybe not, but I think they're progressing and it's a step in the right direction. And again, you've got to get everything solidified and you're going to continue to build and grow that unit. I liked what I saw. I thought it was an encouraging performance from them. Let's talk wide receiver next, because Deion Burks stole the show, and 5 catches, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, all in the first half, a 64-yard touchdown reception and a 50-yard touchdown reception from Jackson Arnold. The hype was real. Everything that we've been hearing about this kid in camp was that he was electric. He might be Oklahoma's best receiver this year. And people before he got to Oklahoma were saying maybe a first-round NFL draft pick at some point. And everything showed up. He didn't just win in the deep passing game. He was winning in the short and the intermediate areas as well, showing off that quickness, that burst, that speed. And then, man, he can fly.
Yeah, it would have been easy to lead with Deion Burks because of the biggest star of the spring game for Oklahoma. He was tremendous. I think just based on the spring game alone and everything that we've heard leading up to it, now you've seen it. You've seen Deion Burks go attack a deep ball. You've seen the other routes in between. 5 grabs, $174, a couple of touchdowns. It, to me, will be, at this point, barring injury, it's a big-time shock if he's not a well over 1,000 yards receiving guy, a 10 touchdown type guy for Oklahoma. I think that right now he's so far and away the clear number one option. And obviously he's already got a big time rapport with Jackson Arnold, which is a big puzzle piece in that regard.
Yeah, instant chemistry between those two. And there was a chance they could have had another big play at one point in the game, and the ball just went just outside the reach of Deion Burks down the field, but it looked really, really good. I think the rest of the wide receiver group was okay. I thought there was just a lot of competitive catches that they didn't quite come up with. Jackson Arnold wasn't as sharp in the short passing game as I would have liked him to be on the slants, but again, you don't have your full complement of wide receivers. Jalil Farouk out, Angelo Anthony out, Nick Anderson out. So it's kind of hard to gauge. I would have liked to see more out of Jaden Gibson. Maybe I think the talent is there. I've been pumping this guy up for weeks, months now, and I think he's going to be a talented guy, and he'll factor in to the wide receiver rotation. I just would have liked to see maybe a little bit more production in the spring game, but it doesn't at all sully my idea of what he can be for the Oklahoma Sooners this year. At running back, Josh, we got to see Gavin Sawchuk, Caleb Hicks, Sam Franklin. Those were the three primary ball carriers. They kept Javonte Barnes out of the game. We don't know what that's going to mean exactly. There's some rumblings, but nothing being reported or substantiated just yet. But Brent Venables said after the game, they wanted to give other guys an opportunity to play. And I think all three of those guys played really well.
Well, since that's the elephant in the running back room, do you think Javonte Barnes will be back with Oklahoma? What is your gut feel?
My gut says no. Unfortunate, because I still think he's a player that can help the Oklahoma Sooners a lot. And I think he could factor in. But if he just doesn't feel like he's going to get the time and get the carries, then I can understand why he might want to transfer out. Caleb Hicks, I mean, that's a guy that Brent Venables has been raving about since last year when he came in as a true freshman. Sam Franklin, he looked good. You never know what you're going to get when you get an FCS transfer, but coming out of UT Martin, he was very productive there. He looks the part of a guy that can play at the FBS level and at a big Power 4 level like Oklahoma is. So I can understand if maybe he's fallen down the depth chart a little bit. And you've got Xavier Robinson, you got Taylor Tatum coming in the summer. I'd hate to see Joe Ball go, but man, it's hard to not speculate that the portal is coming if you don't play in the spring game.
Yeah, given the situation too, kept trying to come back from the injury all last season. And then you heard, okay, some really positive things to start this spring. And then we turn the corner and you don't partake in the spring game. That feels like it's, probably easy to connect the dots, but time will tell on that. The others, what did you think? I mean, which running back impressed you the most?
Well, Gavin Sawchuk to me looked like he was in end of season form, just patient, decisive. And when he got to the hole, he ran with burst. I like the power that he ran with in the short yardage touchdown that he had. So I'm encouraged by that. Obviously, Caleb Hicks with the big touchdown run, he looks like the guy that's going to help them a lot this year. And then again, Sam Franklin looked really good. I think that's your tier. That's your hierarchy right now. If Javonte Barnes is heading into the portal, that's your top three right now is Sawchuk, Hicks, and then Sam Franklin.
And oh, by the way, as you mentioned, we got a little bit of a peek of Xavier Robinson, and we'll see Taylor Tatum once he's done hitting dingers this spring. We'll see him next fall. So yeah, they might have a pretty nice little running back setup. And who knows? Robinson and Tatum, I'm not going to count them out for factoring in, but I also don't disagree. I do agree. Sorry, I don't disagree with your current hierarchy.
Yeah, and a lot can change. I mean, you got summer workouts, fall camp. Who knows exactly where this is all going to land? We've expected that Gavin Sawchuk was going to be your RB1 going into 2024, just based on the way that he finished the 2023 season with 5 straight 100-yard days. I have no reason to believe that that's not going to be the case moving forward. But we've seen DeMarco Murray utilize multiple running backs throughout his term at Oklahoma. So I expect all these guys to get work. Sawchuk being in the kind of that 15 to 20 carry per game workload, and then Caleb Hicks getting some of that, Sam Franklin getting some of that as well. So he's going to get guys on the field if they're ready to play. And those three guys each looked like they were ready to contribite to the Oklahoma Sooners. We got to talk about the quarterback coming up next. We got to talk tight ends, defensive line. We got so much more to break down from the Oklahoma Sooners spring game. And we're going to do that next, coming up here on Locked On Sooners. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses have so many hats to wear that it's difficult to figure out the whole hiring process. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Josh, let's talk about the quarterbacks, I should say. Jackson Arnold, I thought, in the deep passing game, I thought he looked pretty good. He looked sharp. I mean, he had, the little bit of a miss to Jaden Gibson. I don't know if Jaden Gibson necessarily tracked that ball great in the air on that first play of the game. And then he had the one that was just a bit of an overthrow to Deion Burks, but also we're getting overthrows and not underthrows. So that's a plus. But then I think in the short passing game, I mentioned it earlier, just on the slants, just seemed just a little bit off on his accuracy. I don't know if the timing was quite right with guys like Gibson and Bauer Sharp, and who was the guy playing on the other side? I can't remember, but anyway, it just didn't seem like they were in sync on those slant passes, on those RPO passes, quite just yet. But I thought overall, he showed some promising things. The ball security was good. Obviously, the feel for where he was in the pocket, what the pass rush was doing against the offensive line, when to escape, when to run for trouble, and then obviously the legs. He looked really, really good in that front.
Which you would expect. I mean, that's just part of his athletic repertoire. He's got that. We knew that was always going to be a different dimension from Dylan Gabriel, what he's got with his feet, but the pocket presence, seeing that continue to develop is key for Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, he did hit on a deep ball. So, look, overthrow a couple here or there is fine, but go hit another one's great to see. And I think that based on what we saw in the bowl game and here in the spring game, Jackson Arnold's going to take shots. And he's going to hit on some deep shots, which is exciting for Oklahoma. And those feet are impressive. Yes, he needs to fine-tune the mid-range game if you want to use a basketball term, right? Some of the over the middle of the field stuff needs to clean up. Underneath, middle of the field, that needs to get fine-tuned. But I think coming out of this, it's interesting, the build-up. It wasn't just – we talked a lot about this on the radio side. It wasn't just this parade of celebration for Jackson Arnold throughout this spring. It was a lot of, okay, Michael Hawkins looks great. And wow, here's this freshman that stepped on campus and turned a bunch of heads. And I think coming out of the spring game, we saw that Oklahoma has a number one quarterback. And right now today, and it's good news that, yes, that number one quarterback is Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, when I'm talking about some of the things that didn't quite go right for Jackson Arnold, like those were barely misses. Like they weren't like bad overthrows, bad underthrows. He's not like short hopping guys. He's not underthrowing the deep ball. He's not way outside or way inside on a slant pass. It's just off the fingertips. Like these things are close and they're going to get closer and they're going to get more fine tuned and he's going to hit those a little bit easier. But yeah, it's just what it was in the spring game. And that's going to continue to get better. He's going to continue to develop. He's a really good player. Michael Hawkins, I thought, hey, he did some good things. I thought early in his stint, he was throwing on time. I mean, connecting on those outside, comeback routes. I thought he did a really good job throwing those balls on time, letting the receiver come back to it, but not having to, wait on it. It was just kind of right there as they were making their cut. The speed and the elusiveness was very impressive. I mean, when people talk about maybe a bigger Kyler, I see it. I do. The guy that's got the quickness and the speed that he's got. Now, can you match it up with really, really great passing ability? That, time will tell on that. But I think he's got the tools to be a really, really good quarterback for the Sooners down the road. Let's flip to the defensive side, Josh. And we might have to take a little bit more time than what we imagined on the spring game. But let's talk defensive line, because my God, they looked good. And again, spring game, try not to overreact, but you saw the traits that we've been expecting to see out of guys like PJ Adebawore, Jaden Jackson, David Stone, Grayson Halton. Ethan Downs looked really, really good. I mean, the whole defensive front, I thought, played a really, really nice game. I'm not going to try and get too overexcited about it, but I thought overall looked really good.
Oh, get overexcited about it. We and the beautiful thing is we've got all week, we've got all month and next month and all summer. So we got time to enjoy what we saw in the spring game. PJ Adebawore, it was great to see him go make a couple of plays, because this is someone that comes in with a 5-star reputation, and we've seen a little bit of it. And I think now you're starting to see him turn that corner a little bit. R. Mason Thomas, you heard a bunch of good things in the build up to this thing, but for Oklahoma to get where Oklahoma wants to go, the PJ Adebawores of the world, the David Stones, the Jaden Jacksons, those have got to be hits for OU. Those guys have got to turn into big time players. And I think we saw a little bit of that start to form, which was nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the things that we saw those interior guys do, that's what we've been waiting for. Whether it was just hold up at the point of attack and not get blown back. I mean, that's huge, man, to be able to stand your ground and not let those blockers get to the second level and muck up your linebacker play. I mean, Jaden Jackson, dude, he looked ready to go. Like, there have been reports that he's been running with the first team defensive line. I know Dejon Terry was held out of the spring game, and so Jaden Jackson did run with the first team as the one tech nose tackle. But man, he's going to be a rotational guy this year. Like, if he's not starting, he'll at least play, those backup nose tackles snaps. Now, Oklahoma's recruiting a couple guys out of the portal to add to that rotation, but Jaden Jackson is going to get playing time because, I mean, he held up really, really well. I thought, again, David Stone played really good at times and showed the pass rush ability that I think everybody's really, really excited for. At the linebacker level, Kobe McKenzie, is he going to be the guy starting next to Danny Stutzman? Because he looked pretty good.
He's going to have a great chance to do that. And that will continue to be such an interesting position battle for Oklahoma going forward into fall camp and probably right up until the beginning of the season. And who knows, maybe into, week 2 or 3 of the season to kind of finalize what that looks like. But it's nice to see McKenzie out there making some plays, and other guys too, John.
Yeah, for sure. Danny Stutzman obviously is going to be Danny Stutzman. He's going to look good. Samuel Masigo is out there, showing out. Lewis Carter as well. The whole linebacker group, I think, is plus. Obviously, Jaron Kanik kind of got turned around a little bit and didn't make the right play on the Deion Burks big touchdown reception. But again, I'm not gonna back off my stance that it's a work in progress, and he's a developing player. He'll continue to develop and get better. We saw Kip Lewis a little bit, but he went out there a ton from what I could tell, and you didn't see him make a ton of plays. But some of the big talk was about Michael Boganowski, Reggie Powers, the safety group, who got a lot of opportunities with Billy Bowman sitting out. But Michael Boganowski, man, he's ready to bring the thunder. Same with Robert Spears Jennings. Those dudes were just ready to hit somebody.
Yeah, and I mean, the time is now for Robert Spears Jennings, right? You kind of get to this point in a collegiate career to where it's year 3, and it's it's time to go produce if you're going to be somebody that does produce. Typically, that's not in every single instance, but a lot of times it works out that way. So that was good to see. Michael Poganowski, according to the final stats, finished with the team high 6 tackles in this spring game. So yeah, I mean, obviously he went out and had a big time, first showing for Oklahoma fans.
And I thought Des Malone and Kenai Walker at corner looked pretty good too. We'll see if that's how they settle on who their starting cornerbacks are going to be. But I mean, they were competitive. Like we talked earlier about how some of those slant RPO pass attempts were 50-50, or they were coming off the fingertips of those wide receivers. Well, a lot of it is because the coverage was so tight. The window was so small. It was going to be hard to make a play. And that's a good sign for the coverage units that Jay Valai and Brandon Hall are putting together. We'll have more to say about the spring game. We'll continue to talk about it throughout this week. Hey, it's kind of the football offseason now as Oklahoma breaks until summer workouts. But there's going to be a lot to talk about this spring game, and we'll continue to do that here on Locked On Sooners. So make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcast. But coming up next, we got a couple commitments on Sunday, a transfer portal, a 2027 commit. What? Let's discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
It is playoff time in the NBA and in the National Hockey League. Baseball, it's in full swing. FanDuel, it's your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. That's with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. And for our NBA lovers that are caught up in the OKC Thunder fever, FanDuel, they've got the third best odds to go win the NBA championship. It's Boston, a hefty favorite at plus 120. Denver's understandably the defending champion, plus 280. And then it's OKC, 12-1. The Clippers, 14-1. The Bucks, 16-1. And Minnesota, 18-1. So just kind of interesting. But all of that with America's number one sportsbook, and that's FanDuel.
Again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube, so go check us out there. First, let's talk about the big transfer portal commitment that the Oklahoma Sooners earned on Sunday. That's from Branson Hickman, the former SMU center, graduated from SMU, now coming to Oklahoma with over 2,400 snaps to his resume with the Mustangs. It's a big-time addition. Listen, I thought Josh Bates played fairly well in the spring game, but I really like this addition because it gives the Oklahoma Sooners time to continue to develop Josh Bates for the future, and it gives you a legit starting center with collegiate experience that can go in and help solidify that offensive line in Jackson Arnold's first year as a starting quarterback, and then continue to work with Josh Bates, continue to build him up, develop him, and then next year in 2025, it's the Josh Bates show.
So Hickman spent 4 seasons with SMU, got a little bit of action in 2020, and then played in 9 games in 21. And really, those final 7 games, he started the final 7 in 21 and kind of never gave up his starting spot. Started the final 33 games that he played at SMU, all 14 this past season. And he was on the Remington Trophy preseason watch list, a second-team All-American Athletic Conference selection. So this is somebody that has a nice pedigree coming in, has played a bunch of football. And for Oklahoma, if the expectation, it sounds like, is that Troy Everett's good to go once you, if not week 1, then kind of what you hear is week 2, week 3, he'll be good to go. But you know how injuries go, John. Nothing's guaranteed. Something could linger, or you could have a setback. And so for Oklahoma, yes, I thought Josh Bates performed well. And Gary and Hatchett, Oklahoma's kind of tinkered, right, with him sliding over to center some. Obviously, there's been some young guys there as well, the Isosas of the world too. But if you can go get a Branson Hickman, which now you've done, and he's played a number of college games at center, and oh, by the way, you're going to get Troy Everett back at some point, or if you don't, now you have a fallback plan, a legitimate starting fallback plan. This was always something that we thought out of the transfer portal made sense for Oklahoma. And we talked about center being the position that if you picked one, that maybe that was the position that probably Oklahoma most needed to go find immediate help at, and they've done so.
Yeah, little context about Branson Hickman. He was one of 11 players in FBS football last year to play more than 840 snaps and not allow a sack at the center position. He only allowed 8 pressures all season. He was Pro Football Focus's number 2 graded center, again, amongst players that played at least 840 snaps a year ago. So pretty good. And that's among more than 51 centers. So like amongst 51 players, he was the number 2 best center in FBS football last year. So that's pretty strong resume for the Oklahoma Sooners. And again, it's competitive depth. We'll see what happens. I mean, I assume that he's going to start because you don't come here with that much experience and then come and ride the bench. However, if Josh Bates continues to develop his game and come summer and fall camp, he's just that much better. There's no way they're not going to put the best player out on the field, I'd imagine. But this is a move not unlike a Walter Rouse edition last year, where it gave you an opportunity to continue to develop Jacob Sexton. And then by the time, Walter Rouse's career is done at Oklahoma, now you've got a more developed Jacob Sexton ready to take over at left tackle. And then now he might be able to slide in and be your starting left tackle this season. So it's just good development process and plan. If a guy's not quite ready to be the starter, so be it. Go get a guy. Now, let's get to the 2027 commitment. Now, for a time, everybody was crazy about where Oklahoma was in recruiting. Could Oklahoma recruit? Are they going to struggle under Brent Venables because the 2023 class kind of was off to a slow start? 2024 was a little bit off to a slow start. But since then, man, Oklahoma is just bucking all the trends over these for the next 3 recruiting cycles, adding Zane Rowe, a freshman out of Denton Guyer, committing to the Oklahoma Sooners 2027 recruiting class. Got a chance to watch Mr. Rowe's tape. Again, a freshman playing varsity football in Texas 6A high school football, and he looks the part, man. 6'4", 6'5", anywhere from 225 to 230 pounds as a defensive lineman. And I mean, he holds up at the point of attack. He's able to set the edge really, really well against big offensive linemen. And I mean, he's a freshman, still kind of figuring out his body, but he looks pretty athletic to start. And he's only going to get more athletic and more refined, stronger, bigger over the next 3 years of his high school career.
Yeah, we are 2 years and 8 months away from when Rowe and company will start inking, and probably most everybody anymore, right? Inks in that early signing period.
Or maybe in August, because they're talking about putting in an August signing period out there at some point.
That's true. So maybe we're 2 years and 4 months away. Yeah. You subtract 4 months. But the bottom line is we're a long ways away. And yet, hey, I am all for somebody that is that sold on the coaching staff and is that sold on, part of what he said is, I see nothing but great things for Oklahoma in the SEC. So, look, there's a thought that this young man, obviously, if Oklahoma's in the mix and Georgia's in the mix and Texas is in the mix, they don't just offer the 6'5", 220-pound kid already if they don't see elite traits. And all of those programs see elite traits. So I have no doubt that, the scuttlebutt is potential 5-star type kid. So we'll see. We'll see where all of this progresses in his recruitment, but probably going to be a high level defensive player, no doubt. Blue chipper, it sounds like, and we're a long ways away. But hey, when you feel you have a genuine connection with the coaching staff, then just put it into the recruiting process and don't think so much about it.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little bit overthought because, I mean, one, the kids are kind of enjoying the process, and they should. They've worked hard for it. But if you know that you know that you know that you know, like Brent Venables says, then yeah, pull the trigger. And it's interesting that they let him pull the trigger this early in his recruitment, but because Oklahoma just offered him back in March. Like, he has not been a quote unquote Oklahoma offer for very long, but he felt strong enough about Miguel Chavis and Brent Venables and Zach Alley that he was ready to pull the trigger this weekend at the spring game, and Oklahoma let him. So I think that says a lot about where this kid's at and what it means for him to get that offer from Oklahoma and to be an Oklahoma commit. And it just kind of gets the ball rolling on that 2027 class. We got the 2026 commit from Jonathan Hatton, the running back out of Texas, before the 2023 college football season ever started. We got the 2025 commitment from Kevin Sperry before we'd ever gotten a 2024 commitment. And so the timeline just continues to shift up and up. It would not surprise me if 2028 got a commitment sometime this summer out of some 8th grade kid. No, I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. But no, Brent Venables and his staff, they legit can recruit. And they can recruit as well as anybody in the country. And they're going to continue to stack these really, really top tier talented players each and every recruiting cycle to where, okay, they may not be at the spot that Georgia's at, but they're inching closer to that every single year.
Well, and I think you, in either directly or in a roundabout way, touched on something important with Zane Rowe. Clearly, the coaching staff, two-parter, number one, knows that he's incredibly talented, and they're totally bought into that and what his future is going to look like. And number two, Brent Venables always talks about don't commit until you know that you know that you know. So I think that they were impressed by Zane Rowe from his level of commitment, right? I mean, I think that probably both things are true here.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him go all in and make that commitment known unless they felt good that, hey, this is it. It's done. And if he pulls a Trent Wilson and just comes out and like, hey, I'm 1,000% committed. I'm not taking any phone calls or text messages, all the better. But man, it's exciting. It's intriguing stuff. And I think we're going to get more intriguing transfer portal and recruiting news over the next few days as well, as Oklahoma hosted Dominic Williams and also, Lowell.
Yes, Mr. Lowell.
Yeah, Lowell from Louisville. So a lot still to happen. I don't know if they're going to have any more big portal names to look at aside from those two. But if you just come away from the spring portal season with Hickman and Lowell and Williams, then you're looking pretty strong going into summer workouts. And then, this Zane Rowe commitment is huge, but a lot of 2025 prospects that were in town over the weekend on the radar. We'll see how Oklahoma trends with those guys over the next few days. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Make sure you tune in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams, and can't wait to talk to you next time. Till then, Boomer Sooner.